everyone, and welcome to Turn Zero Loss, hosted by the Magic Engineers. Today we're going to be going through a bit of a set review for the March of the Machine, which is the latest set in the Magic the Gathering storyline slash sets, everything else. It's coming out here in a few weeks, but by the time this video gets out, it might already be out. We'll see. So basically, we're going to kind of break it down, going to talk about the story a little bit, talk about some of our favorite cards, hit on some of the complaints that we have about the set overall, and then kind of give our final thoughts on the set as a whole. Given that I'm the resident lore master of the three of us, I believe that I'm the one that's going to be covering the story, so I'll just kind of hop right into it. Overall, the story was pretty good. From what we've seen in the past for these written form stories compared to some of the other things that we've seen. There are some inconsistencies between the cards and the story, but that's just been a case that's been happening for every single set that's come out. It's always a complaint. Hate to see it. We're going to move on. So let's start with some of the good things of the story. Pretty emotional. It was thrilling to wake up each day not knowing what was going to happen because the cards weren't being spoiled yet. On whatever plane that the story was on. We didn't know which characters were going to be completed or, which characters were going to end up dying or kind of having some weird ambiguous fate with them. As we kept going through the story, we learned that Phyrexia wasn't quite as united as we thought it had been. So things were actually not as perilous as they had initially been thought to be. But the biggest thing that I think is an improvement from the last set to this set is that the characters weren't acting super irrational. They were actually executing plans with efficiency, and this supposed uphill struggle against the Phyrexians, constantly having to outwit them in order to get one over on the enemy. And the Phyrexians, on the other hand, completely underestimated the power of an entire plane united against a single threat. Some of the biggest...
It's multiple planes.
Yeah, it's literally every
exactly.
plane and then some that we've seen in Magic's history.
Yeah, so seeing all of those people unite against Phyrexia, so it's basically one plane versus every plane that we've ever seen. Phyrexia never stood a chance.
Yeah. And I was listening to some lore stuff today, and what it really comes down to, what Phyrexia's main folly is, in seek of perfection, their hubris does them in.
Yeah, that's really all it is. They're so proud of the thing they're trying to build that it ends up being their downfall in the end.
Yeah, which is the direction I thought they were going to go with the story, and it made the most sense to go that way because it always seemed like, in the last set we saw it even with Elish Norn, kind of asserting her perception of perfection upon Phyrexia, but we saw very quickly she was nowhere near as unemotional and unbiased as she seemed to be, or at least she perceived herself to be. So the hubris was very strong there. If I do have a complaint to make about the story, though, more specifically the written short stories on the website, and that is, it felt like they were defeated too quickly.
Correct.
It felt very fast because it happened because Urabrask had been killed, and then all of a sudden, all the other Praetors dropped like flies. Like Vorinclex, we barely saw die, and Elish Norn died very quickly, and that all happened in the span of 2 chapters.
Correct.
And
a lot of that, I think the biggest way to describe the plot as a whole for this is that we saw the beginning of this invasion in All Will Be One, and we see the end of the invasion in March of the Machine. We don't get the middle. We don't get an idea of how long this invasion actually was going on for, because to us, it was just kind of day after day. We're like, oh, this is just in a day. But in reality, it could have been happening for weeks, months, years, but we don't know because they don't give us a good sense of that time passage. And the only way that we know that time passage happens is because we're following beat by beat with Chandra and Nissa meeting in Phyrexia, and then everything goes downhill from there with Chandra and Ren and Koth getting caught with Malira, and then all the stuff that happens there. It just happens so fast, and it feels like it happens so fast because there's no in between. We don't get the middle. We don't get the Act 2, we just get to the Act 3 where everything that's good is going to happen.
And I actually have kind of another bone to pick with how the story was told. I understand, yeah, like how they needed to tell it just what's going on in every plane, but they literally chose to order it in the way that was like, oh, this is all the bad stuff that's happening on these planes, and then the planes are actually winning. They got towards the end. I would have rather them just like kind of. I would have rather them ordered it a little bit differently to not make it like, okay, 2 chapters were done, because it was like
Yeah.
plane, actual plan done.
Yeah, it hopped around a lot.
It did.
Like, I'm not opposed to them hopping around because I believe every story need to be told in that situation.
Correct.
But I wish they would have. There was a better way to order this and a better way to get the story across. It was a good, like a solid story, but that's like my biggest bone.
This feels like a story that needed 3 sets to tell. I was never a fan of the 3-set format, but I think this one did need a 3rd set, where the first set depicts New Phyrexia prepping for the invasion. Second set depicts the invasion going to shit and everything going bad for everybody. And then set 3 be the big return. You know, they find ways to win. They eventually start getting minor victories that turn into larger victories, and eventually at the end, New Phyrexia is routed and phased out of existence.
Yeah, those are my thoughts exactly on that. There probably needs to be a 3rd set for this to actually give all these stories of, you know, will they, won't they die, will they, won't they lose, kind of more emphasis and kind of give us more tension, because all the tension immediately wipes away, especially if you're reading this day by day and you get to the Vraska story. You already know that the good guys win at that point.
Yeah.
Because at the very end of the Vraska story, you see Ralzeric cleaning up Ravnica and the aftermath.
I also have a complaint with how easily Phyresis is either resisted or undone in this story. Because I understand, like, there are, you know, some planes have natural immunities to it, or some styles of existence have immunities to Phyresis. You know, Manlir is a perfect example of that. But, like, some stuff is just bizarre to me. Like, Innistrad zombies are immune to Phyresis? Really?
That doesn't make sense. 'Cause
Yeah,
they literally they literally complete dead bodies all the time. Like, there's a perfect example of those throughout the entirety of All Will Be One, where a bunch of dead characters are being brought back to life to be marched around in front of, you know, our current story characters.
Yep. And also, like, you know, the
My-
Ikoria
my-
crystals that give immunity as well is baffling.
I mean, I can see that if they would have built up to it, but they
Sure.
did not build up to it.
No.
Another issue is that, again, watching some lore stuff. It's like technically the Planeswalker spark should make them impregnable to completion. Still don't quite understand how the completion process worked for all the Planeswalkers. It happened, and I guess we accept that it happens. But it's just, to me, it just, a lot of like this, like, and this is more of a gripe with All Will Be One than this, but it seems like there was just, these were completed, and then we see some of their actions, and then we see the results.
Yes. And on top of that, we got to see hints throughout the entirety of this story that even the completed Planeswalkers weren't fully there. Because we saw in the story with Tamio that she was resisting the call of Phyrexia the entire time. That she didn't want to kill Nashi, and that she was purposely missing all of her attacks because she could. That was the only way she could resist, you know, the threat of Phyrexia in total. And then when she died, you know, it's the only reason why she died is because she wasn't actually fighting at her full strength.
Yeah, and to me that speaks more of like, like there's a difference between corrupted by Phyrexia and completed by Phyrexia. Like the Venzer puppet, that's 100% completion.
Mm-hmm.
But like even Nissa, who is probably the most loyal completed Planeswalker, even she still had the, like, half of her that was trying to push out the Phyrexian part of it, which I admit, it's like, it's an interesting story, it's an interesting to see, but if this was the middle set, we would have been actually able to understand the full conflict of it within her, and then see it performed out in the next set of like what she does and how she acts. This was like like the first half of the story versus in the second half of the story all in the same chapter, and it's just, again, I think it's just too quick.
I think my personal highlight of the story, like in terms of good things, is definitely the Vraska story.
Yep.
I loved that story. That story almost made me cry when I was reading it at work, and it, like, I don't know, it just like had me emotionally hooked, and I was feeling for this character that we've seen go through a ton of struggles in the story overall of Magic, and to see that somehow, some way, that little mind palace that Jace made for her kind of like allows her to see herself go through everything that's happening out there, of her tearing out the eyeballs of the people of Ravnica. Really brutal stuff. And it kind of just like, it really hurts you to see that kind of like split personality where they're kind of hopping back and forth between the regular Vraska and the Phyrexian Vraska, and it's just kind of like this emotional turmoil that we're experiencing with her. And then eventually, when she, whatever the heck happens to her from Ralzeric's device, is forced to kind of retreat back into her mind, we get that little tidbit with her and Mind Palace Jace kind of going through their life together, having coffee, reading books, doing all the stuff that they said they were going to do. And then her fate is just ambiguous now. We don't know what happened to her.
I mean, I like the ambiguity with that, because I don't think they need to outwardly state all the things that go on in this.
Correct.
I have a feeling they're just going to leave it hanging open for future set to explore, which is fine. I'm on board with that. And
absolutely,
God damn it, why can't Jason Vraska just get together? Come on.
Right?
They got coffee. Mind coffee.
Why can't
They got mind coffee,
just,
yeah, but I want them to get real coffee. Damn it.
Why can't they just be happy? Like,
yeah.
Why can't those two finally just be together and like enjoy the life that they want?
It's because if Teferi can't be happy, no one can be happy.
Of course it's Teferi.
Speaking of Teferi,
hey.
he finally gets to make things right with Zalfir.
He got away. It was way better. It wasn't even fair. He did not get punished for destroying
after
a plane.
thousands of years for absolutely destroying the continent of Zalfir. He finally gets to make that right by switching the spot of new Phyrexia and Zalfir. And I think that's a really clever and like really intuitive way to get that done. However, Teferi still hasn't paid for anything he's ever done. Yes, sure, he's had some like mental anguish over this stuff, but he's not like, he's never physically been punished for any of the stuff that he's ever done.
He basically pulled the reverse wrath. He just he read the old playbooks. He was like, "Ooh, Phyrexia did this. Maybe I can do this."
Yeah, basically. And then I guess the final really high note for me is Karn finally getting to make things right by destroying the thing that he accidentally helped create.
All hail Machine Daddy.
Oh, hail Machine Daddy.
So, a lot of great things in the story. Recommend you go read it, just so that way you can have a better understanding of what we're talking about. We're kind of going over like the gloss details, but some of the things that we kind of have issue with is there's a literal Deus Ex Machina in the middle of this. With it's built up, but it feels like it comes out of nowhere at the same time. Of the Angels of New Capenna and Elspeth saving the day. So it's go on.
My biggest issue with that is not that, like, because technically all that other stuff surrounding it isn't technically a Deus Ex Machina. The Deus Ex Machina is the fact that Sarah was involved, and I'm like, no, this is not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah,
like,
Sarah's involvement really actually soured the story for me pretty hard, because I'm like, really, like, how would she get involved in this in a way that makes sense?
Like, honestly, what I would have liked to see is this is me rewriting the story for them, is that the old angel that was in Atraxa, her spirit is moved on out of her body, and she's calling to Elspeth to make it, like, and help her beat Phyrexia or something like that. There's a lot more that could have been done that was very easily implementable, that they just like, oh no, this is it's Sarah, and I was like, no, how can she still exist? Or like how is she alive after Urza collapsed her plane and Urza is not?
Yeah, none of us were like expecting that. It didn't feel like it was like a good plot point. It was just something that they pulled out of their ass to justify the Elspeth's an archangel now.
Which there are plenty of ways to do that. You really did not need to involve Sarah in that discussion.
Absolutely not.
Like you could have done something with like, oh, when she hit the halo and like the halo fountain, like something as she was crashing into it, something ignited and it released the like all the old angels of New Capenna went into her and embodied, helped power her up.
Yeah, something like that. Anything like that. Atraxa dying didn't get any sort of spotlight at all. It got a single card. It wasn't talked about very much in the story. They talked about the plan. They didn't talk about the aftermath of her dying. It was just kind of like yeah, she's dead now, so you're good to go. Everything's good.
Which is
same with most of the Praetors. Most of them, they died in like satisfying ways, but none of them did anything. Like we said earlier, the only ones that did anything were Urabrask and Elish Norn.
My hearts out to pour one out for my boy Urabrask. He really tried.
Yeah,
he did his best.
So, and here's where the inconsistencies kind of get really strange for me, because on the cards it make it seem like that Urabrask is still alive. So we're kind of in this weird middle ground where we're trying to figure out, is he actually dead or is he alive? And for me, I default to the story, so he's dead. But magic is weird, and they'll probably just bring him back at some point whenever they get bored with whatever big bad they get to next.
Which is Emrakul. They're going to Emrakul next. I want them to not. I want them to leave that alone for a little while.
There's no way that they're not going back there.
Yeah,
I know, but I'd like them not to.
Considering who was it? Considering that Nissa was Phyrexianized and probably lost some of her ability to control that spell.
Yeah,
there's a million outs that they can get Emmy Nom Noms to go do some planet sucking.
Yep.
On to the final part of the story, the ugly parts. I think the only reason why this set existed was to kill Luca and Tamio, because those are the only two completed Planeswalkers that were confirmed dead. Currently, Vraska and Jace are still MIA. Ajani and Nissa were uncompleted with the help of Karn, Malira, and Teferi, which, granted, those are some heavy stakes because Karn, I think, gave up his ability to planeswalk, and Malira gave up her life to save those two. And then Nahiri, we're not sure, because it's looking at the box of the Aftermath set that follows this one, we see Nahiri alive and well. But it was confirmed somewhere, I can't say like anywhere else, that the box art is inaccurate and that supposedly there's still a chance she's dead. But none of us can hold out hope for anything because Nahiri is a giant bitch and none of us want to see her alive.
I was fuming when I saw that box art. I'm like, are you kidding me? You had this opportunity to kill off this character that's done all this really nasty shit and you just don't?
Yeah, it's a wasted opportunity. Overall, grade of the story, a heartbreak out of 10.
I give it an out of 10. It's fine, but I mean, I was expecting a lot more for the fall of new Phyrexia, which we've been building up to for nearly 10 years now.
Which is why I'm heartbroken about it.
Well, and the thing is, it's not necessarily that Phyrexia itself was like defeated. It was the Praetors that were defeated.
Yes.
I mean, sure, but again,
the plane technically still exists outside of existence, but without the Praetors, who's guided them?
I mean, there's what's her name? The Eldraine Queen. Yeah,
yeah.
The new Mommy Machines. Mommy Machines 2 Electric Boogaloo. It's I'm just trying to fill in time. Wow.
I think it's Naya.
I'm almost there. Ayara, Widow of the Realm. Because she got with Urabrask.
She did. She did apparently get married to Urabrask, and then Urabrask died because all the people that she gets married to dies. That's the only reason why he's dead, because of that bitch.
I mean, her card's pretty cool, but...
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of cards, let's talk about a few of our favorites, shall we?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll go first. So, probably one of my favorite cards in the set. My boy finally got a little bit of a pick-me-up. Got actually probably one of the best Planeswalker or best Praetor cards in the set, and that is my boy Urabrask. Urabrask is 2 red, Phyrexian Praetor with first strike, and has whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Urabrask deals 1 damage to target opponent, add 1 red. You can also pay a red, exile Urabrask, and Return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery and only if you cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells this turn, and it turns into the Great Work. It is a saga, and its first lore counter says the Great Work deals 3 damage to target opponent and each creature that they control. Its second lore counter is create 3 treasure tokens, and then its third, until the end of turn, you may cast instant sorcery spells from any graveyard. If a spell is cast this way, if a spell cast this way would be put into a graveyard, exile instead. Exile the Great Work and return it onto the battlefield. So that was a lot. So what I see with this, it's kind of like a Bergie. I don't want to say steam kiln artist, but a one of the many like pingers.
The pingers.
Yeah, those 1 damage pingers just stapled together, and a pretty efficient rate too. This is a 4/4 for 4 with a ton of upside. For the first strike is not notable, and I just feel like it's a very good card. Like very solid. It's definitely not the weakest of the planeswalker, or not planeswalkers, of the Praetors. And I feel Urbrass deserved it. What do you guys think?
I love this card. I am definitely going to try to get a copy of it if I can pull it during like a pre-release or draft environment.
Yeah,
I'll buy the single for it. I don't care.
This card goes in Storm, it goes in Feather, it goes in Zada, it goes in so many red decks that care about spells and tricks. Like, it's so good.
It is a generically good card, and it fits in a lot of things, but also like Urbrask deserves this. He's had enough.
Yes,
he's been the worst Praetor, and he deserves to be the best this time. Okay, moving on. The next one also happens to be one of the transform cards. It is Polukranos Reborn. It is green, green, green for a legendary creature Hydra with reach, and has pay 6 generic and white Phyrexian. Transform Polukranos Reborn. Activate only as a sorcery. He is a 4/5. So 3 green for a 4/5. Pretty good efficient rate. And they transforms into my favorite part. Polukranos Engine of Ruin. It has reach and lifelink. It's a Phyrexian Hydra, and has whenever Polukranos Engine of Ruin or another non-token Hydra you control dies, create a 3/3 green and white Hydra Phyrexian token with reach, and a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian creature token with lifelink.
It's a mouthful to actually like say that all.
That's a pretty common pattern with most cards in this set, though.
Yeah, they're using all sides in this set.
Yep. They're using all 3 sides of the Magic card.
Yeah. But I really like this. It's a Worm Coil engine, but for Hydras in Selesnya, and I really like that. It's just like, it's such a fun card. It's a fun card to build around. I know Claw has a Hail Hydra deck that So it's kind of a flavor fail because it doesn't fit into David's Hydra deck, and it's
so 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10 for him. I think it's pretty cool. It's probably going to be my.
I love this card.
It's probably going to be my Selesnya deck that I'm going to build.
I personally love the alternate art for this.
Oh, it is very cool. Like the constellation art, very, very cool.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I will say I'm not very high on this card, actually, because I think, like, first of all, it's not going to be great in draft because it's 3 hard green mana, which means it's really hard to play in most decks where you're generally running 2+ colors.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's fine as a Worm Coil Engine replacement, but it's nowhere near as good because the Worm Coil Engine gives you Death Touch, which I think is much better than Reach as an ability. But
I mean, it's what you get in Selesnya.
I'm splitting hairs. This card's good.
It's what you get in Selesnya.
What? I mean, that's fair, but I'm splitting hairs. This card's good. Just not my
It's
favorite.
a commander card. It is not a this is, if you're going hard and green, that you'd pick this up. This would be like 3rd pack purse pick if you're already in green.
Yeah, maybe. I would still hesitate, but
3 green pips in draft is very difficult.
yeah, unless you have some fixing in place already, but that's neither here nor there.
Again, we're splitting hairs here. Okay, and on to my final one is Rona, Herald of Invasion. She is 1 in a blue for a legendary creature, human wizard, and she has, whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap Rona, Herald of Invasion. She also has the ability tap, draw a card, then discard a card, and the ability pay 5 generic and 1 black Phyrexian to transform, only activate as a sorcery. She is a 1/3. Flip her over, and then she turns into Rona, Tolarian Obliterator. Phyrexian wizard, has trample as well. Whenever a source deals damage to Rona, a Tolarian Obliterator. That source's controller exiles a card from their hand at random. If it's a land, you may put it onto the battlefield under your control. Otherwise, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Guys, we broke Prodigal Sorcerer.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
It's awesome. I love it.
Love this card.
This card's so cool.
It's so unique for its color, arrangement, and I'm like, I need to build another Dimir deck with this. It'll be different from all my other Dimir decks, and people won't feel as bad as me playing with their cards.
Yeah, if you're building a deck with this, I recommend obviously Prodigal Sorcerer, but also Pathway Arrows as well. Will be awesome with this card.
Caltrops as well.
Yeah,
Caltrops will also be good. Yeah.
Any way that you can do any sort of thing to your own hand, to your own creature, so deal damage to yourself or your own creature, it's just way better.
Yeah.
Because like you could do it in a way that you make your other opponents do damage to her, but it's easier for you to do it to your own and know what you're gonna get out of your hand.
Exactly. Like you what you could easily do is set up some sort of make this indestructible somehow, and then you just have something that continually pings it, and then you get to play. You just get to play probably most of your deck if you've set it up right. But I really like this card. It's super unique for what it does, and on the front side, it's still notable. It's a looting effect on the front side, untaps itself. So
yeah,
and that's not notable, but I like this card.
I'm probably gonna build a deck around this card. I think this card's sick, and I really want to play with it.
Also, destroying a library. I'm all for destroying a library.
Yeah.
Okay, who do we want to go to next?
On to David.
Yeah,
let's go to David.
I think I'll go next. So, my first card is obviously a meme pick, but I'm gonna call it out anyways because I love stupid shit like this, and this is definitely stupid. And that is Yargle and Multani.
The greatest card ever printed.
It is the greatest card ever printed. So it is a 6 mana. It's 3 generic, 2 black, and 2 green for a legendary creature, Frog Spear Elemental.
Amazing.
And it is an 18/6.
What's the text box say?
The flavor text reads, "I've heard much about you from my daughter," Multani rumbled. "There was a time when I'd balk at your aid, Phantom, but she has shown me the merit of Urbok's strange ways." "Go shock the ribbit," replied Yargle.
No. Wait. It seems like it's missing something, like a ability.
Who needs abilities when you're an 18/6?
Yeah. You don't need abilities when you're an 18/6. I think this is actually... I might be wrong about this, but I think this is the only vanilla card in the entire set.
I think so.
I think so, which is really strange that it's Frog Spear Elemental, it's vanilla.
Yeah. So let it be known that this is what is the baseline for a new Magic card to be vanilla, is have it be 18/6.
I think it's the most fair Voltron. You don't even need to attach anything. You just
I mean, you probably want to attach something. You probably want to attach like Fire Streaker or something to it.
Yeah, give it some sort of protection as well.
We'll also give it First Strike and Death Touch. It'll protect itself. And then add Trample just for more rules confusion.
Just to make it worse.
All rules confusion.
I like it. Yeah. All right. So that's my first pick. I love that card, and I legitimately love it. It's stupid, but it's brilliant. So my second card is much more notable. So this is from one of the Commander precons, and that is Gimbal, Gremlin Prodigy. It is a 5 mana, 2 generic, and green, blue, red for a legendary creature, Goblin Artificer, 4/4. Artifact creatures you control trample. At the beginning of your end step, create a 0/0 red Gremlin artifact creature token. Put X1/1 counters on it, where X is the number of differently named artifact tokens you control. I think this card is cool. I really like designs like this that are, they incentivize you to pull from all over Magic's history to put together a deck that works well with each other. And, I mean, you get a big gremlin out of it. It's, it's kind of neat, but there's just a lot of really fun combo-y stuff that I imagine you could get done with this card. And I think it's cool, and I'm going to build a deck around this. It's not that I want to. I'm going to. It's going to happen. So
this is a very unique
excited.
in Teamer, because Teamer's usually very samey, and this is distinctly unique for what it wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am very much high on this card as well. I plan to want to build something around it as well.
Yeah.
And another note, I like the flavor text. You are what you eat, and everything he'd eaten was brilliant.
Yeah.
That's
awesome. All right, and my final card is also a commander exclusive card, but I think it's because, and again, I have this on the list because it's memey and funny and I like it, and that would be Herald of Hoofbeats.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the card right now. Give me a second.
I can read it if you want. I have it up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Herald of
Go ahead, read
Hoofbeats
it.
is 3 and a blue for a creature human knight, and has horsemanship. And other knights you control have horsemanship.
Yeah.
Horsemanship's back, baby.
Horsemanship is back, baby. Let's go.
Most dismissed her love of horses as a passing childhood fancy. Years later, it saved their lives.
Okay, I admit 2 out of my 3 cards being memes maybe is not a good indication of who I am as a person, but I don't care. I love this card. I love horsemanship.
Horsemanship can win you games, all right?
Yes, and it does win you games if you use
Post
it
Malone
correctly.
proved that.
Granted, it's the problem. Yeah, the problem with horsemanship was that there were no good cards that really used it.
Correct.
So the fact that we're actually getting one that does use it is pretty remarkable, and I do like that, because this definitely can slot into any like kind of Esper style knight deck you have, because that knight Esper is probably like one of the more common color combos with that particular build. So I like it, and I like horsemanship. More cards should have horsemanship. Wizards,
We love it.
bring back horsemanship.
Do more.
You see, why can't they just said,
Yeah.
"Hey, all your knights are unblockable"? No, they gave them horsemanship just
No, it has to be
just to make
horsemanship
sure
for
that
flavor.
they can get blocked by other horsemanship people.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
All right. I've gotten mine out of the way. Eli, all yours.
All right. Well, my cards are a little different, I suppose. So let's get right into it. First card I got here is Quintorius Loremaster. Haha, I already know the jokes. I'm a lore master. He's a lore master.
Roll
Who
on the
cares?
nose.
Cost three red, white for a legendary elephant cleric. He's a 3/5.
Hey, it's on Elephant.
And-
It makes it even better.
He has vigilance, and at the beginning of your end step, exile target non-creature, non-land card from your graveyard. Create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. And then you could pay 1 red white to tap him and sacrifice a spirit token to choose target card exiled with Quintorius. You may cast that card this turn without paying its mana cost. If that spell will be put into a graveyard, put it on the bottom of its owner's library instead.
Yeah, I'd like
I
Kaikar
love this
offshoot
card.
for 300 Trebek.
Yeah. So
Daily
I
double.
love the idea. I love the idea of doing a red white, like kind of you have a balance between spirits and non-land, non-creature cards in this deck. But at the same time, I'd love this card the 99 for like a Osgear the Reconstructor deck. So you put him in the 99, and then he helps you kind of cycle through artifacts that you don't want to exactly recast and exile from your graveyard. So it's like something that you would find important in your graveyard. I'm not sure what it would be in that case, but in this case, you're just like, oh, I don't want it to go there yet, so let's just put it onto the battlefield. There we go. I got an artifact for free. For 3 mana, technically, and a spirit. Not free, but 3 mana and a spirit. It's a good card. I love it. He's great. And I also love Quintorius in like the story for Strixhaven and the story for the set for
His
Strixhaven.
mystical archive frame is also insane. It's so cool.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's so
that-
good.
That is the image that I'm saving for this for this particular set. I love him, and I need to get that art as soon as I can. On to number 2 here. We'll go to Rankle and Torbran. So Rankle and Torbran is 1 black red for a legendary creature fairy dwarf, and they're a 3/4. They have flying, first strike, haste. Whenever Rankle and Torbran deals combat damage to a player or battle, choose any number. Each player creates a treasure token. Each player sacrifices a creature. Or, if a source would deal damage to a player or battle this turn, it deals that much damage +2 instead. I love the silliness of this card. I don't know if you guys can really get a feel for that, but like the silliness of the Rankle and Torbran story that was written, and then the silliness of this card as well.
Oh, I love how Rankle
all.
accidentally took down the Phyrexians.
Yeah.
He took down the Phyrexians with the power of love, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go. But yeah, this card is it's not anything like super fun to like write home about, but I love the idea of like kind of utilizing this into a commander
It's
strategy.
definitely like Rakdos value, which is again something you don't see as much nowadays.
Exactly. And then the final card, which is pretty cut and dry. It's City on Fire. Cost 5 red, red, red. That's an insane price, but when you really think about it, it has Convoke, which, if you don't know what Convoke is, you can read the reminder text here. Your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for 1 or 1 mana of that creature's color. If a source you would control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. I love this.
This card is
It's
so
so
dangerous.
insane in like any sort of token strategy that can make a lot of goblin tokens, or you want to deal a lot of burn damage, and you have a ton of things on the board that you can like just tap to pay for this.
This can be a 0 mana fiery emancipation,
is-
if that tells you anything.
Yes. With a large number of goblins, absolutely.
Yeah, it becomes very much a crazy kind of game changer that could either win you or lose you the game, because people are going to see it and be like, "Oh, we should really get rid of this guy as soon as we can before he just burns us out."
Yeah, it's a very all or nothing play, but
It really
It
puts
works,
a fire
you
under
will
your
win.
opponents.
Oh, absolutely.
Eh?
Aha, aha. Good one. Onto some of the notable reprints of this set. There's not a whole lot, but that's because this set is like jam packed with like a bunch of new cards or cards that are basically like reflavored old cards. So like,
I mean, we got Monastery Mentor. That's
We
a
got
pretty good one.
yeah, you got Monastery Mentor, but a lot of the cards that are in this set aren't super like reprinty. There's not a ton.
No.
So Monastery Mentor is good, but a lot of it is brand new cards or cards that are just copies of old cards. So like, for example, You Are Already Dead got basically another version of its set.
The
Village Rites also got another copy of
the
itself.
multiverse legends are, I believe, in every pack, and there's 65 of them, and a lot of them are pretty notable. Like, I'm just going over the highlights here, like Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, Elish Norn, Grand Cenobite, basically all the Praetors, all in their new arts, which are all.
Yeah, you got Ragavan in there as well as a reprint.
You got Squee the
Squee,
Immortal.
formerly immortal.
Yep. Those
Yes.
irritating companion cards, all of them are eligible for this
They're
as well.
actually printed with their
Yes.
correct.
I don't know if
Oracle text now.
Yep.
yes. I don't know if these are actually legal to play.
They're not
inside
in
of
the standard and
though,
draft.
is the
Yes,
thing.
they are legal.
No. Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool. Good to know. I'll keep note of that as I do draft. So yeah, there's a lot of really good things that are being reprinted. There's a lot of them, so you might not get the ones you need or want. But on the topic of these reprints, all of them are getting mostly very beautiful art renditions here. So like each type of legendary creature that's being reprinted here has its own style and frame that is being added to it that is relevant to the plane that they originally came from. So even like some of the pair ups have these border styles as well. So like throughout the entirety of this set, there are so many different frames and card types that you could get, and they're all, well, not all of them, but they're mostly all beautiful. I think the only complaint I have is with the Eldraine one, because the Eldraine one just looks really weird because it's a book, but you just right across the center of the book, so it doesn't really look that great. And then also with the Amonkhet border, because the Amonkhet border looks very awkward.
Yeah, with plain text, yeah.
Yeah. So I am not sold on those two, but the rest of them,
The Ixalan one,
I love it.
amazing.
Oh, I love the
Beautiful.
Ixalan.
Tarkir
border.
as
It's
well.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tarkir's is very pretty.
I even like Ikoria's treatment. I
yeah,
think
they
that's pretty
updated
cool as
their
well.
Yes.
their
And then-
comic book inspired drawings to actually give it a full proper frame, and I really like that.
Yeah.
And then
Oh.
the Ravnica skyline frame there,
Oh, gorgeous.
also very great. So overall, Wizards has done really good on the art for most of these Most of these cards, and heck, even the cards that have weird frames, the art's still very good. It's just the frame.
I would like to highlight Finn the Fangbear as having being one of the most metal pictures.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
And one of the most brutal flavored texts
awesome.
in this set. I've always said I've had the score to settle with that serpent. I'm a man of my word.
Yeah, it's cold.
He was not kidding, and it's so good. I love it. Keep them coming, Wizards. Like, if you can keep doing stuff like this, I would not complain.
Do you want to move on to the elephant in the room?
How are you feeling about this set? Which one?
Because
there's a couple I can see.
Let's start. Let's start with battles. Please.
All right. Let's start with battles.
So, if for people that aren't aware, battles are a new card type that is being introduced in this set, and they're kind of a middle ground between an enchantment and planeswalkers, where when you cast them, you give them to another player basically and say, you have to protect this, and they get a certain number of what are called defense counters. In order for you to defeat the battle, you have to attack it and deal damage to it to reduce its defense counters to 0. When it goes to 0, you exile it, and then you cast it on its backside under your control.
Yeah. So I want to first point out that all of the battles in this set have the subtype Siege. I expect there'll be more unique, varied battles as Wizards refines it a little bit more and decides more what they want to do with it. But first of all, I have a major concern with that, and that's with card ownership. Because when you hand it to an opponent to act and protect it, you create an issue of both. First of all, you need to decide who owns the card physically, which is usually not a non-issue, but it can happen sometimes if it's a particularly valuable one, like I expect one of these will be. And second of all, you also have the in-game ownership as well. Is that, okay, who controls this card at this time? Like that's something that granted I haven't read the rules too deeply into it yet, so maybe they have an answer to that, but that is a concern. It's not one that's, I think, fully easily understood. So they need to clarify that.
My biggest issue with these battles is that they feel like, at least for these ones, they feel like just like defensible enchantments, and then they need to piggyback off another card type to like make it work, because that make them a little bit more unique. Because this just kind of reminds me of the sagas with backsides from Kamigawa, and it's like those are great, but these are like I love the art on them, but like a lot of them I'm just like, well, so some of them you get a cantrip, some of them you get like this or that, and it's notable, but like there isn't a ton of reason to attack a lot of these, maybe besides the Teferi one. But like
for a lot of these, it's very hard to get them off, because you can get them onto the battlefield pretty easily, but to try to get the defense counters down to 0 is a lot harder, because most people aren't going to want you to get to that point where you get whatever's on the backside. Sometimes the backside's not even worth caring about, because they're just kind of meh.
I'd also like to mention that a Draenith Magistrate or a Containment Priest really messes up battles a lot, at least so far.
Yeah, it's the only reason why is because they say you exile it, then cast it transformed. If it was just said exile it and put it into play transformed, it would be easier. But the fact that you have to cast it, it just basically makes it easier to kind of like interrupt that and be like, oh, I could counterspell this, or I could do this or that and interact with it in that moment, because it puts it onto the stack. It's not a special ability.
I'm also a little irked about this type of card, because this is not a card that I think works in every set, or a card type that works in every set. No. Because battles like this, at least from their appearance, are meant to depict major fights in the history of the game or the plane or wherever they're doing it in, or in the story. Yeah, but some planes just don't. Some stories just don't have a ton of fighting in there.
No,
a lot of it's character stuff, or a lot of it's exploring the world a little bit, and not really focused on the fights. I mean, there's some fights in every Magic story, but it's some of them. It's not really the important part of it. So I struggle to see this being adopted as the next big card type, when there's no flavor reason to incorporate it into the set.
Correct. Because it feels like every single time you would want to have battles, it'd be in like huge apexes for a story.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to just have a battle inside of a set for no reason. Because that's what this set is. It's just the apex of finally try to be the payoff of the entire New Phyrexia saga that we've been kind of going through for the last 2 decades.
I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think this is just too narrow, and I don't see. And the cards themselves don't do much. Like many of them, when you play them, they just have an ETB. Then you have to defeat them to get their back effect, and some of them just aren't worth it. Most of them actually aren't.
And
really
this is just a
which I think
nitpick.
is a big problem.
But the way that their frame is set up is slightly asymmetrical, and that bothers the crap out of me.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't
And
like that they're sideways.
I'm
either.
fine with them
Like, why
being
is it like
sideways
Yes.
if we had the old the earlier modern carved frame where everything is like doesn't have a black border fully around it, where it's just like right on the edge. Whereas this actually has a frame so that like it bends in on one side, and plus they have the rarity stamp too, which just
Yeah, it's just a little awkward. I also the biggest complaint for that being sideways too is if you're like in an environment where you're like trying to cast one of these and you've never seen it before and you don't know what it does, so you have to like turn your cards sideways and it's very obvious that you're about to cast a battle.
Yep, that's just. It doesn't seem like it was very thought through fully. And if Wizards wants to make it the next big card type, they need to do more refinement. And as it is, it just clearly isn't ready.
I think, like for me, I am still a person that thinks tribal should have still been a thing, because at least that has a place in the game where you actually search for like goblin or changeling or whatever it is. And this just seems to me like they're trying something new, which I'm very okay with, but they decided to play it safe in how they did this. And that means that like, and usually when Wizards plays it safe is usually when Wizards makes the most mistakes and makes these, like, again, they're hard to reprint. Like, even if we don't do Siege next time, like maybe it's like Squabble is another than the next one, or Skirmish. Yeah.
Or Skirmish, or
it
Duel,
just seems like
or
me
whatever.
they took the old design of kind of like when they were making Planeswalkers, like because this is very similar to the initial Planeswalker design, but I don't think that this can be involved in each set, and it's just reprints are also going to be extremely tough, I think, for at least this set for these battles. Like these are going to become Commander and Master set only reprints.
If they even see play there, and I'm not entirely convinced they will.
Yeah, because
There's maybe 2
Commander,
or 3 I
these
can
are
see.
actually a little bit like it's easier to hit those, but like I don't understand like the politics of why would you want to hit someone's battle that only benefits one person and not everybody. And
Yep.
it just seems like the idea I can understand, but this is, why can't you just brought back tribal? It didn't do anything wrong. You just forgot about it.
Everyone forgot about it.
I never forgot. I always remembered.
Okay.
I'm also somewhat nonplussed that the only representation some of these planes
Yeah.
get is in the battle cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like specifically Chandelar, Alara, Mercadia.
Morwen.
Yep. Like that to me is like I find that somewhat insulting. I feel like some of these planes really should have gotten more cards than just the battle respective. But no.
I
that's the
do
only way I
like
can fit
the
it in.
arts in a lot of them. I will say that the arts are really great in them, but also
Yep.
I just don't.
They do have
think,
great art.
like, because they look, when I see them, my initial thought is these are planes from Planes Chase, not that these are actual cards.
Yes.
And yeah, not to mention I think a lot of these abilities are very overcosted just for them existing, especially them being defensible makes them inherently stronger.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will say I am gonna run Invasion
It
of
is a very
Chandelar
good
in almost
card.
every green deck. Not it's so
You have
good.
no reason not to.
It's probably the best of these invasions, I would argue. But
Or Invasion of Tarkir.
yeah, that's where I'm at. Tarkir is also very good as
Backside
well.
is very, very good.
But I mean, yeah. I don't see the design space here. I don't really get what they're going for, and it feels like a miss to me.
On to the other elephant in the room.
Let me read this. I'll read this card off so that you guys can understand my anger because I have a lot to say about it. All right. So there's a new commander in one of the precons. His name is Sidar Jabari of Zalfir. He is a 1 white blue black legendary creature human knight 4/3. And he has a keyword that I have absolutely despised, and I've hoped they never reprinted. And I said they wouldn't do it, and then they immediately proceed to do it after I say it. Eminence. Whenever you attack with one or more knights, if Sidar Jabari of Zalfir is in the command zone or on the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. Flying first strike. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return target knight creature
Boo,
card
Eminence,
from your graveyard to the
boo,
battlefield.
boo.
Yeah, I'm very nonplussed that this returned. I don't think this card's not very good. I want to call out and say right now, this card is kind of whatever. Like, fine. But it's by default the best Knight Commander in these colors because it has Eminence.
Correct.
And that very much bothers me because I mentioned Herald of Hoofbeats earlier, which is a Knight card that gives Knights horsemanship, and I wanted to kind of play around and see if I can make an Esper Knight build work. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, and then I saw this card, and then I'm like, well, I guess this is what I have to go with now. Like, because it's just the best.
Yes, it is.
Like, this is the kind of thing that we were talking about with Eminence earlier, and like every time we bring it up, we say it, but we're going to say it again. We hate this. I hate this. It homogenizes the format more and more, and that's something that we need to get away from design-wise.
It's the most uncommander commander mechanic that has ever existed. You shouldn't get rewarded for just value. If
you get rid of Eminence
it's a cool
from
design.
this,
It's
a cool
fine.
design.
Yeah.
Get rid of Eminence.
harmless.
Make that ability just its static ability for it being on the battlefield.
Yep. So
Pretty
as
harmless.
in defiance of this ability, I'm not going to play Sidar Jabari. I'm going to play Alinda and Azor instead,
Makes sense.
out of spite.
I mean, I do really like a lot of the other commander designs. I love the backup commander. Gimbal, you guys really like. I like the Convoke tribal deck. That's really cool.
Oh yeah,
And I have my
do
next
like that
combo
one.
build in Shalai and Halar. Like, that's like I get
Hey.
to build a +1/+1 counters deck that's completely different than my other +1/+1 counters deck.
it's a different.
No,
set
this
of
one's
ropes and pulleys.
probably more aggressive because it is the combo of all you need to do is play Heliod and then boom, done. But
Yeah,
I really
you're
like
right.
a lot of the cards. Like Rashmi and Ragavan is a really cool combo. Alinda and Azor, Miora and Tishar.
I also want to give a shout out as well to Catilda and Lier. I think that design. Is really cool.
Goro
Yes.
and Satoru. Man, why aren't you
Satoru.
in a deck, or why are you only in the set boosters? Because those are really cool
Yeah.
designs. Also, Slimefoot and Squee, you guys are awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. I wish you guys were included.
We love
but
you guys. Yeah.
It'll be okay, guys. Yeah, that's really
What about
it.
Incubate? What's your feelings on that?
Overall, I think Incubate just had some confusing wording on it at first when I was first reading it, but the more I read it, the easier it gets for me to understand. Because at
Yeah.
first I was very confused. I was like, "Oh, this is the number of tokens you make? That's kind of crazy." But no, it's just the number of +1/+1.
It's just a big
counters you put
boy.
on. Yeah, just one big boy, so it's
Yeah.
not broken. It's
Yeah,
pretty
I like it. I think
Yes.
I think it has a lot of use in draft and limited formats in general.
Yeah, draft is going to find Incubate to be a very interesting mechanic to deal with.
Yep.
Drafting this set's going to be really interesting too, because there's not a whole lot of color
Yeah.
fixing.
There's like maybe 2 cards that provide color fixing for the set.
Yeah,
And
that's about
kind of
it. So you're just kind of running by the gun of your seat doing 2 color pairings basically, because otherwise, if you try to go to a third, you're running out of design space
Also,
for yourself.
negate getting the best start, but being negate.
Yeah, that's my final complaint that we'll finish this episode on is negate being the most important story plot point where everybody's giving up their powers to save a Johnny and Nissa, and it has the coolest art, but it's on negate. So they're forcing the story point to be into a standard legal card, and I hate that.
Cope.
I will cope. I'll cry about it too. I don't
I
care.
do.
Go
Do you
for
guys
it.
want to talk about the Praetors at all?
Yeah, we can talk about them briefly.
Yeah.
I think this is the fairest set of Praetors I've seen ever released. It's kind of baffling. Like, in the set full of absurd nonsense that constantly goes on, the fact that the 5 Praetors all being here isn't terribly broken. They're powerful, but they're not, like, nasty things is quite remarkable.
I love their design. Like, I love they're kind of like the reverse Kamigawa cards, where they're a creature on the front and then they flip over to the back. They have a saga and then they flip back over. I think that's a good job, Wizards. That's a fun design, and you're not copying. You're just reversing and pasting.
I will say I do have some minor concerns over the new Jin-Gitaxias, mostly because of his saga, because it's really powerful. But I mean,
Shieldred's saga is pretty
I think
is really powerful.
That is true. It is also very strong.
I think the Jin-Gitaxias saga isn't too bad because you have to have to actually flip it. You need to meet that condition, but once you get over there, things get really bad.
And guys, I can't believe it. A balanced foreign collects.
It took us 10 years to get there.
Yeah, honestly, the Elish Norn is really pretty good actually too. Though, like the front side's not great. The back side's the.
I do really like the design on the front though. Like the taxing effect, I do really like that. It's definitely up Shieldred's, or not Shieldred's, Elish Norn's alley.
Yeah, that saga chapter 1 is unbelievably dangerous.
Yeah, let me just get a bunch of 2/2s.
That soon become 3/3s with double strike.
Yeah.
Which means that you deal with me immediately or you die.
Oh my gosh, Elish Norn's going to be a threat in the draft environment again.
This card is going to be like the chase, like the bombiest bomb in the format, hands down.
Just finished getting
insane.
I just finished getting wrecked by the Mother of Machines, Elish Norn. I can't get wrecked by this one too. Please.
So nice you had to get wrecked twice.
Oh, one final note. The sword cycle is complete.
Oh. The sword cycle is complete. And the card is fine.
I think it's better than Forge and Frontier, but I don't
good.
feel like arguing for 30 minutes.
I think you're crazy.
I think the fact that you can cast it without paying its mana cost is what makes it better. And you can set up what you're binning.
It's just a little bit better.
Forge and Frontier is pretty good. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed the episode and enjoyed our thoughts on the story, everything like that.
How are we gonna grade this set? Because
I grade this set a B-.
I rate this Athalia and the Get Wrong Monster out of 10.
Amazing.
Awesome.
What
incredible
ratings. What a great scale.
I know, right? So balanced.
If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to give us a like, drop a comment into your thoughts on the set below. Maybe we missed a card that you liked and that you want to
tell me why Moment of Truth is going to break standard.
Yeah. Follow us on Twitter at Lost Turn, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.